Beautiful. Thank you.
Okay, lovely. So, welcome everyone to the webinar series, The LSP Journey Building Value Across the Life Cycle. This series is a joint initiative by the Canadian Language Industry Association and the European Language Industry Association, ELIA, bringing together perspectives from across the global language business ecosystem. In the webinar series, we examine how we as LSPs can build businesses that evolve, not just operate. My name is Aleksandrina Karabasheva, and I'm the Vice President of ELIA, and it's a pleasure to be moderating today's session. Marketing, growing, and scaling, demonstrating and sustaining value. We will address a critical shift that's happening in our industry. We talked in our first webinar about structuring the company and a business for value. And today we move to where growth happens. And unfortunately, where most of us LSPs sometimes get it wrong. How we position, how we sell, and how we create value in a market, especially now when buyers expect clear, measurable business impact. So, a quick couple of housekeeping notes. Please keep your microphones muted to avoid background noise. The session will be recorded and will be available on YouTube. And also, feel free to use the chat for questions during the session and have it open and ready to engage in it because Paul has some fantastic questions for us as well. Now, Paul, let me introduce our speaker today. He's also known as the growth guy, which is a fantastic, strong name to be known as. Paul is a founder, a revenue strategist, and advisor to companies that are navigating growth and change and acquisition. After building and scaling multiple companies in the localization and the interpreting industry, he now works with leadership teams to design smarter sales strategies, to enter new markets, to build the commercial infrastructure required for sustainable growth. He's known for cutting through industry cliches and focusing on the few actions that actually drive revenue and long-term enterprise value. So, enough from me. Paul, welcome, and over to you.
Sandy, thank you so much for that introduction. You actually managed to make me blush here, which is which is not easily done because I'm Irish and you know how we Irish are. So thank you for that. It's an honor to be here today. I'm really proud to be part of this and an honor to be invited to do this. And as with everything, I hope we'll give some value here. I'm going to ask some tough questions. This is going to be, it should be a little uncomfortable to the audience too, because I want you to be thinking and applying what you're hearing here to your own organizations and stuff. And hopefully we come away with maybe some action items, some lessons learned and some stuff like that. A couple of words of warning. As I said, I'm Irish, so I talk a lot and I talk quickly. So feel free to use the chat to say, hey, what did he just say there? Or haul us back. I do have a few slides here where I'm going to ask you to participate and maybe stick some answers in there so we can make sure we're resonating here again, you know, points I'm making match what you're seeing, what you're hearing. So I would encourage you all to answer some of those questions as we go. It would be great. It will contribute more to the overall value of this session. I have a lot of content, so we'll get through it as quickly as we can, and hopefully we get 10-15 minutes at the end, Sandy, then to open the floor and maybe have a chat with everybody then, hopefully. So, okay. So enough of that. Let's jump right in. So yes, today, as you said, we're about marketing, growing, and scaling. And yes, the whole question of value, it's a huge question, you know, and a huge shift in the industry as we all know in the last probably 24 months, you know. So and why doing more no longer drives growth. So that's really the bottom line and how I wanted to go at this with you today. So Sandy, if you could move us along, that'd be great, please, to the next slide. So why are you here today? So I'm hoping this resonates. The old deal is off the table, right? In the old deal, speed, cost, quality, it was usually take your pick. And that was the deal for 30 years, right? So it was, yeah, I can give you quality and I can give you speed, but it'll probably cost a lot. I can give you cost and speed, but quality might be impacted. So you know what I'm talking about here. Then AI arrived, right? So, and everything's off the table. So it solved all three. And frankly, what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing, particularly from the client side, is nobody really cares enough to pay for the div anymore, you know? So what does that leave us? What does that leave us to sell? Where does that leave us? Quick shout out here, that beautiful AI image on the right hand side. Jose Palomares is a good friend of mine from Coupa. I have to give him credit for that image, and he let me use that today. So I wanted to give Jose a quick shout out and say thank you for that wonderful image, because it really sums it up beautifully for us. Okay, next slide, Sandy, please. Oh, and I see Jose, Jose and Dario giving thumbs up. All right, so Jose's listening in too. Cool. So look, the real problem, right? Most LSPs are still measuring growth by volume, right? We're thinking volume, faster, more, scale, let's do more. But the shift has happened, right? So buyers are now saying, well, AI has taken that problem away. Scale is not necessarily, volume is not necessarily the problem. We now want to see business impact. We want to see risk reduction, and we want strategic partnerships. Now, we talked a lot in the past about, oh, we're a strategic partner, but that kind of resonated in terms of we can do more, we can do it faster, we can do it cheaper, we can do it whatever. That's gone, as I said. So output is not value or considered value anymore. So where do we go from there? Let me just tell you what we're not doing today. So I like to kind of jump into that. This isn't about AI tools and MT debates. I'm not qualified enough to talk about those anyway, but I want to keep this very much focused on revenue architecture, where marketing and sales have to reposition and demonstrate value to our clients. Because at the end of the day, if they're not happy and they're not paying us, then we've got a big problem. So the backdrop for me is marketing sets it up and positions it for us. Okay, marketing goes out and does the groundwork, gets out in front, and then sales has to come in and monetize it. And that's where we're going with this today. Next slide, please. So the silent shift, what's changed? AI reduced perceived complexity. Suddenly it was like, oh, we've got AI and everything. It's going to solve everything, right? And so buyers are then saying, well, vendor partner X and partner Y and partner Z, or Z. See how I localize that, Sandy? Z and Z, depending on what part of the world you're in. Buyers are making comparisons earlier, so they can measure really clearly how are my three partners doing? How are they lining up? What's their tech stack looking like? What's their AI implementation? Who's efficient? Who's not? And then, of course, price pressure then immediately comes into it and starts earlier. So marketing messages are being evaluated earlier than ever. And this is, again, I built the marketing piece into this because marketing is absolutely critical to go hand in hand with your sales organization. So if your messaging is wrong out there in front from your marketing perspective, then you've got a problem. Your sales team are going to have a problem converting the client, convincing the client. So marketing is critical to all of this. And I know, Sandy, you've a very strong marketing interest in this. So again, feel free to pipe in here with a comment or two if you need to or whatever. But I wanted to really make sure marketing doesn't get lost in the sales stampede here, because marketing is critical, and early marketing and correct marketing up front is critical to the whole piece. Next slide, please. So, what changed in execution and marketing? As I said, execution feels easier, so it's harder to differentiate on delivery, right? So again, it's like this thought of, oh, we can get through it quickly and easily, and it has to be done, and it has to be perfect, and yeah, it'll fix everything, and so on. Speed is assumed, right? So no longer a compelling message. You can't say, hey, we're very quick, we're very fast, we'll do this. AI, as I said, is right out the gate. It's an expectation. If you don't have an AI play, you need to get one. If you don't have an AI implementation, you need to find a partner, or you need to start looking technology wise and implement it. And you need to start to be able to, build that narrative, get your marketing team talking about it, get your leadership team talking about it. So commoditization narrative takes hold. Again, everybody's gone to AI could do that. What's your play here? So, and then we're seeing procurement getting in earlier. So again, marketing kind of needs to get ahead of that. They need to get that right messaging out there, because when procurement comes in, very often they're not focused on the big picture and the value. They're drilling in, looking at at detail per word, per how's it going to cost, what does it sew together and all that. But marketing has to get that message early in terms of selling value, selling, hey, we're a partnership where, we're going to bring value, we're going to deal with your problems, we're going to take them off the table. And that bottom line sums it up perfectly. If marketing doesn't establish that early, then sales is going to have to take that pricing fight a little bit later on, and they're going to have to fight that corner a little later on. So, next slide, please. So, over to the audience. This, I told you I was going to put you on the spot for a couple of times, and hopefully you'll engage us here. So, what are one or two commercial challenges you're facing right now? I'd love you to pop some answers in the chat there, just really quickly. You know, are you facing any challenges? Is this stuff I'm talking about real, or are you so insulated, or you have such a great set of clients that you don't have any commercial challenges? That'd be wonderful. I'd love to hear how you're doing that. So,
Exactly.
so are we
Let's see.
are we seeing anything, or is everybody shy out there, Sandy?
People are still shy, I think. Let's see.
Okay,
Oh, we have one. Yeah.
thank
Okay.
you. Gaining
Coming
new
in.
clients, price pressure. Excellent. Okay, let's pop the next slide, please. There we go. And the winner is, so price pressure, AI comparison, smaller deal sizes, procurement control, faster turnaround, internal client confusion. So hopefully some of these resonate, and thank you for those who actually answered that to it on there. This is real. This is the stuff we're seeing out there. I know I've been both at Vamos Juntos and Gala recently, and met a lot of LSP owners and leadership in those regions, and they're having the same problems, right? So this is not just a regional issue. This is across our entire industry and across, LSP owners and LSPs, across the board. This is real, and this is happening. So next slide, please, Sandy. So again, the question's not whether translation and interpreting remains necessary. Really, it's about where does your value sit in the building. Now, that's kind of a strange thing to say, but we'll see the building next, and it'll hopefully tie it together in a visual way for you. But again, we want to know where your value sits. So here's one of my favorite images that I love to share, and I love to talk about the value building, and it's a framework. And there's a beautiful building there on the right hand side, and it's three very different floors. And I just want you to try and visualize your organization. And so if we look at the ground floor, so I'll do this from bottom to top rather than top to bottom. So the ground floor, it's bigger, it's busier. That's where your transactional revenue resides. That's where automation competes in here, and that's where most LSPs compete on. It's price, it's speed, it's volume, and that's where AI resides, by the way. So that's getting difficult to survive and to sell from there, because I said what you're talking about and what you're doing, are transactional stuff. And that's very hard to sell transactional stuff nowadays. That's not necessarily showing real value. So middle floor brings you more towards management and government, program revenue, less competitors, some differentiators, more operational, more, automation, more kind of, so it does differentiate you. You're starting to talk about systems. You're starting to talk about, well, there's more value in here, but it's more operational. And they're up there on the top floor. That's where we want to be, or at least selling a chunk of our business, strategic enablement. We're talking about, that stuff I mentioned earlier, outcome-based revenue. Decision makers live up here. It's very hard to see, but there is actually a decision maker sitting right up there in the Zen garden, chilling out, probably having a margarita, and it looks like there is one LSP managed to make their way up there to have a chat with them, and there's the helicopter at the top there for when the LSP owner sells their business and they head off to the sunset. So obviously, tongue in cheek, this is very important, a very important thing to think about. You need to get as much of your sales on that top floor. But like I said, most LSPs are selling on the ground floor. But again, it's a visual I love personally, because it's easy to kind of resonate with. Okay, next slide, please. So, as I said, where most LSPs sit is there in selling, execution, and competing on price. And as we know, we got to shift that. We got to shift that, because it's no longer sustainable. There's too much competition, and AI is wiping that out and wiping those margins out. And so marketing that sells experience and quality keeps you on the ground floor. So again, I wanted to bring a little bit of the importance of the marketing message into this. Again, it starts with your marketing crew. So you're coming, and so many organizations. I mean, again, not being critical, but I love marketing, right? So I actually taught a digital marketing class at UC Berkeley a few years back, and I love the whole area and the whole concept of marketing. But I'm disappointed when I look across our organization. I look on LinkedIn. I looked at the marketing that gets churned out by companies in our industry that have huge marketing budgets, and it's all saying nearly all saying the same thing. There's very few of them kind of step out of the comfort zone, and it's all, oh, we've quality, we've experience, it's very similar. It's very similar. So I would challenge you guys, come up with something fresh and link that to the selling on the top floor, and get that messaging there, because marketing, again, super important in all of this. Um, but when you're stuck on the ground floor and you're selling on the ground floor and your messaging is on the ground floor, that puts you into an environment where you're relying on highly compressible revenue. Now, this is one of my favorite topics coming next. So this compressible revenue thing, I'm not sure if you've seen it before or heard about it before, but I want to talk about it, and I don't want to bore you, but I'm a bit of a geek around numbers and a bit of a geek around this. But this should resonate too with LSP owners, because this is the thing that's happening, and you may not even have a word for it. So next slide, please. So, and yeah, you see, I'm jumping the gun a little bit. I wanted to get straight into compression revenue. And so, look, it's strategic elevation, as I mentioned. Again, I'm kind of repeating myself. In middle floor, gets you're differentiating who you are, what you are. You're talking about specific systems and so on. And top floor, fewer competitors up there. As I said, higher margins. That's where we want to be. You don't have to sell 100% of everything. Phenomenal if you do, but you would want 25, 50% if you can get a big chunk of your revenue coming from there. Then that's almost a safety net, in many respects too, So you're not down exposed on your revenue exposure, to that ground floor fight every day, compete with AI, compete with lots of competitors, compete for volume, you're up there in the Zen garden, at least getting a good chunk of safe, repeatable, value-driven revenue up there on the top floor. So we want to try and get up there. So again, key insights on compression. AI doesn't demolish your building, but it compresses the ground floor, right? So again, when we were all busy on the ground floor, now AI has come into the room and said, okay, you know what, we're muscling our way in here, and a lot of that busy stuff, we can mop that up quickly using AI. Um, Again, growth requires elevation. We got to get up there. We got to get our messaging. Marketing role is critical in this. So it's got to be elevation, not description. Not, as I said, we're not talking, oh, we're experienced, we're fast, we're scalable. You got to start talking the real talk to elevate the organization. Next slide, please. So here we go. My favorite stuff, and my friends usually go, their eyes start to glaze over when I start talking this, because I'm passionate. So I put together just a little example, just to tie this together, to see how it works and hopefully resonate. So I call it the compression hinge, and it's just a financial architecture just to show you how this thing works quietly, silently works away. So imagine we have this LSP, 5 million. I was going to put Canadian dollars in there, but I realized we could have had euro and US dollars in there. So I left it at $5 million in there anyway. So imagine the revenue mix is execution revenue, which is that ground floor stuff, right? 70% is the busy, the words and all of that. And then 30% is embedded revenue. So we've SLAs, we've kind of contracts, that kind of stuff. It's a good mix of business. Blended gross margin about 36%. 1.4, there's an error there in that. So I apologize that there's a 1.8 shouldn't be there. But operating expense 1.4 million, EBITDA 400K, 8% margin, right? So that's a healthy kind of, I think many would say that's a healthy business, right? So numbers are good. We have some strategic flexibility in there, meaning some cash in the bank. We're motoring well. We've good repeatable revenue. Um, we can think about investing. We can think about technology. We can think about our people. We can think about going to spending money on marketing, spending extra money on marketing initiatives. So you've got flexibility in there, right? So next slide, Sandy, please. So what if your execution price compresses 20% over the next 3 years? So you're thinking your price per word, all of that kind of stuff starts compressed by 20%. This is real pressure that we're seeing. And this is a fairly middle of the road kind of number I picked here. I think we've seen much more dramatic numbers from people in the last 18 months, unfortunately with AI in there. So just think, what if that compresses 20% over the next 3 years or the next couple of years, and there's no volume growth, and we'll say there's no change to your cost base. So these are pretty realistic. I think we're all feeling the pressure. Price pressure was number one thing mentioned here earlier. So again, it's okay, we're taking the hit. There's no drama, but we know we need to tighten up, right? That's the feeling, that's an uncomfortable feeling in there. So, but maybe we're not quite sure what the impact is going to be. So if we look at it, what that would mean to our company is our execution revenue. So that ground floor revenue goes from 3.5 to 2.8 million. And so your total revenue goes from 5 to 4.3, 14% straight off the bat, right? So you're going, okay, that's a problem, 14% down. It's serious, but it's not catastrophic necessarily, right? So, but we're down 14% revenue. That's with this little compression, right? With this 20% silent thing nibbling away. So, next slide, please. So, what that means is your execution margin drops to 25% and your gross profit. So when I say execution, I mean that ground floor revenue, right? That fast translation, TEB stuff, all of that. So your profit falls, your execution gross profit is then down to 700K. So let's assuming your embedded gross profit remains steady, because that's not getting touched. That's your total GP down 420K, right? Straight off the bat by that compression. 420K right off the bat with that 20% compression. So that's a fairly serious chunk of gross profit. So again, let's just assume operation expenses don't change because they can't necessarily catch up with the drop. So it remains at 1.4. What does it do to EBITDA? Your 400K EBITDA is wiped out, right? That's gone, absolutely gone by that 400, drop. Your margin has gone to zero. And that now changes your company outlook. So one bad event could put you into a loss. And that's not a big collapse. It's just erosion, right? So it's just, again, it's nibbled away. Now, one other really important point is anyone thinking of selling the company or anyone that's even had a little look to see what's the valuation of my company. Nowadays, EBITDA is a big driving factor behind company valuation. So if you've gone from 400K to zero or negative, that's not going to do a lot for your valuation in terms of you want to try and sell your company. So again, this is not, there hasn't been a huge collapse overnight. This is just erosion, right? So this is what I mean about compression. It's compressing everything. Next slide, Sandy, please. So revenue versus EBITDA, compression disproportionately hits EBITDA, as you've seen. You're thinking gross profit was down a big chunk. EBITDA's gone, it's wiped out. Pricing pressure, so a small change wipes out your strategic flexibility. So again, you're gone from, okay, we have some money to spend, to invest, to suddenly now it's like, oh my goodness, I don't think I can go to the conference. I don't want to spend money on that. Oh, I don't think I can invest in tools. Oh, maybe we can't give the staff pay raises. And that's the mind of a CEO and leadership, or an owner. I think that's where you kind of go to. But again, this is the thing. It's just nibbling away and nibbling away. And I just wanted to put it up in light. So I'm not trying to depress you all. I want to enlighten you all. I promise you, this is real. So then your fixed costs become fragile under pressure. Your ability to reinvest disappears, right? Your optionality narrows. Your R&D may be impacted. Your ability to go, I really need to be getting an AI play here. I really need to invest in technology and my people and re-educate them and rebuild sales and the messaging and rebuild marketing and all of that. And now I'm not sure I have the money to do that. So am I stuck in a downward spiral here? How do I drag myself out of this? So again, I promise you not trying to depress anyone here, but this is the reality, and I wanted to jolt you, all to have a little think about this today. So back to you guys. So positioning test. I would like if you'd be so kind, I want you to have a little think about what you offer, your company offers, your organization. So this should all read as we help, and who's your customer, by providing, what do you provide so they can, what's the outcome? So if you would take a minute and maybe just have a little think about it, and if you're brave enough, put your answer in there. We help huge technology companies, whatever. Let's put it in there, and if you're brave enough to share with us, I'd love you to throw an answer in there. Again, we're just trying to test your positioning here to see, are you transactional or more transactional, more ground floor than that value driven stuff? And I mean, there's no right or wrong answers here because every company has its own personality and its own challenges and its own needs. And again, if you want to answer it and just take it away in your own mind to go, okay, the way I answered that makes me feel like we're on the ground floor selling, not on the top floor. Then that's a great thing because that maybe highlight something for you here. So anyone brave enough wants to throw an answer in there?
Let's see. Nothing yet. Oh, yes, here we go. So do you see the chat poll?
I just got to pull it up here. We help thank you, Natalie. We help organizations and businesses reach new audiences by providing culturally adapted translation services. Okay. Just let's pop to the next slide, Sandy, please. So, Natalie, could AI say the same thing? And I don't mean to put Natalie on stuff because Natalie is the bravest person in the room here to put an answer up there. But again, just ask yourself, could AI say the same thing? And I'm not asking you, and just have a think about it. So again, everybody in the audience, whatever you've written down, whatever you thought, just again, because if the answer is yes, then that's the ground floor, right? So, and then we need to think, well, do we need to reposition this a little bit? Okay, let's thank you, Natalie. Big, huge thank you for that. I really appreciate you stepping up there and giving us your thoughts there. So the problem, typical marketing, as I said, typically, but fast, high quality, scalable experience. And I'm not here to beat up the marketing departments of everyone in our industry, but again, I have some friends on the client side, and again, they say they get the same messaging over and over and over and over, and there's very few standouts. So again, challenge to any marketing people out there, you know, and the problem here is AI can claim all of these, right? So marketing is creating comparison and not differentiation. So again, big challenge for marketing organizations here. How do you differentiate your organization? Because you're the front line, you're the ones out there even before the sales team. So again, just think about it. And again, kind of on the output versus impact, I kind of wanted to include this, output. What's Paul talking about here? Per word, per hour, match rates, volume driven, all that busy ground floor stuff. And more work doesn't mean more profit, right? So in the old days, it's like we'll get more volume in, we'll cut the rates, but because of the volume, we'll make up the profit and all of that. More work does not mean more profit anymore. So again, that's a huge shift. So, and so that impact selling, launch readiness, risk reduction, market access, compliance, confidence. You can charge by an SLA or retain, but different conversation again. It's like we need to have, more embedded revenue if we can. That top floor stuff that I was talking about. So. Again, easier said than done, Paul. I hear you saying, and I totally accept that. This is not easy, and these are difficult conversations to have. And these are, it's a big shift. It's a big shift in the thinking, in the way we've done things as well. But but this is what you need to start doing, in order to rebuild that healthy revenue and that healthy growth and that healthy organization. Because you know what, as I said, these are the conversations the clients need to have and want to have because, again, localization buyers on the client side, they're under pressure too, right? So they're not sitting over there, honestly, tongue in cheek. There's the Zen garden. They are not sitting up there in the Zen garden, nice and comfortable either, quite frankly. They are under pressure too because there's a C suite above them, a CEO or a COO or a CFO or whatever you want to, whatever you want to go with, a CTO who's saying, "Oh, AI is here, so why are we even spending money on localization? Doesn't AI do that for free now?" So they're having to justify their value, and so they want partners that can have that conversation with them too. So in some respects, it's very difficult. In some respects, it's a huge opportunity, right? It's a huge opportunity for you to change the narrative and go in and have that conversation with your clients because that's what they need to talk about because that's the questions they're getting from upstairs too. So again, opportunity here, in my opinion, and maybe I'm an eternal optimist, but that's far better than the doom and gloom we've been hearing in the last 24 months, in my opinion. There is a silver lining here, there is an opportunity. So and why not? Why not? Why not your organization? Why not you go do it? You lead the charge. So okay, how are we doing for time, Sandy? Just I check now. I'm not sure what number slide we're on
We
versus we're
are 24th
okay. We're
slide.
motoring well.
Yeah, 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 you're good.
Okay, so perfect. So look at if your pricing's tied to word, your margin will always be controlled by someone else because it's always I want it cheaper, I want it more, I want it beaten down or whatever. And so again, marketing has to get out in front to communicate this impact. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to make sure you're compliant in those 35 regions that you're going to. We're going to make sure you're delivered on time. Again, talking about the impact. What if it doesn't happen? What if you don't launch in those 16 regions, next quarter? What's the financial impact? What's the, brand impact? Talk about impact, and you're giving support, reality, and guarantees essentially, so again, marketing can bring that message and sales can validate it, So again, we'll back that up. So this is kind of what I've been talking about, what executives are looking to buy these days. So risk mitigation, regulatory stability, and hopefully some of these are resonating with you too, because I know there's a lot of varied organizations there, and you're selling to government, you're selling to healthcare, you're selling interpretation services, not just translation organizations. There's a real mix of organizations here. So market entry, speed, brand governance, revenue protection, it's all built in here, So this is the conversation. These are the priorities now they're looking for. We've a note just popped in there, Sandy.
Yes, we have a question. Do you want to answer it now or at the end?
Yeah, let's see.
Okay, talk to your existing customers to understand what impact you're making for them and turn those into your marketing messaging.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if that's a question or a thought from Jose, but I think what Jose is saying here is, look, go out and talk to your customers, and understand what impact you're making on their organization, So, and this is coming from the client side here, so thank you, Jose, for that. Okay, yeah, and to turn those into your marketing. Yes, exactly, exactly. So, I think understanding what impact you're having on your client, not just, oh, we delivered 1 million words last month. It's like, what was the impact? Like the what did that mean? Oh, that meant they launched successfully in 16 regions and they had a huge spike in their whatever, the so what question, right? So, and why not bring that back then and build that into your marketing messaging? Build that hey, we're solving problems for our clients here. We're ensuring compliance in 25 regions. We are ensuring on-time launch, which led to revenue growth for client X, if they'll allow you mention, or for some of our clients. Build that into this is what we're doing, and here's the impact it's having for the positive impact it's having for our clients. So yes, that's what I was saying, Jose. Okay. So, like I said, easier said than done, Paul. How do we do this? So I think, and I could do a whole session on this on your on your positioning. So again, I think bring it back. I think if you're serious, you got to just think it through again. If you think we're not in the right space here, we need to do some work. Bring it back. Identify your ideal client again. Articulate the strategic problems that you're solving. Right, again, be really clear. That's the kind of client. Here's the problems we're solving. Here's the outcome. Here's the result. This is what we're solving. This is the positive upside, and then apply positioning across your marketing and sales. So they're the conversations. That's the wonderful stuff. We'll see Sandy posting on LinkedIn about her organization and the messaging and so on. Sorry for picking on you, Sandy, but I know you're helping me out here. But
No, I love it.
and so that probably answers Jose. Jose probably asked the question before I got to it, but that hopefully answers Jose's question. Yes, think it through, talk it through, figure it out, and then build it into your messaging, and then go out and tell the world, and lead rather than react, and get away from the hey, we're fast, we're scalable, we have quality, we've lots of experience. I think again, everybody can probably say that, or everybody is saying that, whether they can back it up or not, they're still saying it. So have a little think about that. This is kind of the blueprint, I think so. And like I said, yeah, if you're positioning described output, then we're going to be compared, But if you're describing impact, then you become a part of the client. If you're, hey, we're having a real impact in the business, in the organization, not just we do the localization piece. We're having an impact in the big picture, then you become part of, very important piece of the infrastructure at that client. Okay, so just a little bit of talk about when, breakdown points. So when does this kind of go askew, when deals collapse? Like, so when price gets into the conversation, when AI gets in, when procurement takes control, it gets a messier conversation, right? You're dragged into detail, you're dragged down into the, how much, the comparison, how much is it? What is it? Why are we paying for this? Why couldn't AI do that? All of that kind of stuff. So, and if that's the case, then, and I don't want to beat up marketing, but I think at that stage, marketing has probably failed to hold the altitude, and sales hasn't been able to back that up. So again, really important back to messaging, and I really wanted to stress the importance of the two working together. It's really critical. You have to have your marketing and sales aligned, and carrying that messaging out together. So, and this one I like because it kind of gives you the flow, and I'm fairly simple. I like simple. I like easy. I like easy to follow steps. So, marketing creates the altitude, right? Marketing gets you up there, and sales will protect it. And then you position yourself up there. You sell the outcomes, not the execution, and then you're up in that Zen garden. Hopefully, for at least 25% of your time, maybe 50, maybe 75 would be amazing. But that's where we want to be, right? So again, simple thought process, but really when you break it down, it's marketing comes out the gate first and sets the tone for us, and it's critical. It's critical. So again, and some of this I feel like I'm going over again, just ground floors, reactive positioning that then fights comparison. You're defending the price, the quality, comparing features. Strategic positioning is back to value. What's the frame the risk strategically, quantify the business consequences. So you're talking about what happens if it doesn't happen. What happens if you miss that deadline? What happens if your organization doesn't ship in 30 languages next quarter? You know, that's where the real impact and the real consequences are discussed, and that I promise you will get clients talking. So you're elevating the conversation. So one last challenge, one last thing for you. Again, I want you to think about your own organizations, and we don't have to write this down, but I wanted you to take this away just to think about, and hopefully we'll be sharing this video and all of that. But have a think about how you can move from execution to management, and then from management into strategic. So how can you shift your organization, and pick one thing maybe, and try and test it over the next 30 days, just to see if you can elevate it. Because again, this is where you have to go. These are the conversations. But like I said earlier, I feel this is also opportunity for smart, savvy, nimble LSP owners, leaders, and we've been amazing over the past 30 odd years in terms of reinventing ourselves and getting out there in front and going again and leading it. And I think I heard somebody say on the client side recently, it's an opportunity for localization to actually be elevated in the whole organization. It's not, don't even call it localization anymore. We're part of the global kind of picture here within the organization, and we're contributing a huge part. Again, top level, top tier C-suite people on the client side want to listen to that, want to talk about that, want to hear that, and there's an opportunity for us to present ourselves that way. And we've been great in this industry of kind of putting ourselves down, and now I think we have an opportunity, to go, oh well, we'll do that bit and whatever. And I don't think, you know what, I think we can elevate ourselves, and I think there's an opportunity for us to elevate ourselves, in the bigger picture. So, do I have one more slide? Yes,
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 you
a
have.
final thought. So, if you describe output, you're going to get compared to competitors and to AI. If you describe your impact, you become essential to the infrastructure. But again, as I said to you, I think there's an opportunity there, but you got to think about this. And this isn't easy. I totally get that and admit that, but it's an uncomfortable shift. But there's no other way. We got to do it, because if we don't, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the future holds, in terms of AI and in terms of our industry and all that, if you don't make the shift. So, and on that cheery note,
And we're perfect timing.
thank you so
So we
much.
have
Beautiful.
time for questions. Yes. We already have one question actually in the chat
Okay.
that's waiting for you. So John is asking, has anyone asked about the value? I guess that's a question to everyone, but has anyone asked about the value in dollars or euros that the translation or localization brought the client? And have they received a response or a number? Do you have such an experience? Have you done this? Have you heard someone doing this where they actually have received an answer?
Not yet. That's a great question, John. That's a great question. I can kind of give some thoughts just while people might be thinking about how they want to answer that, or if they want to answer it. But I think it's very hard to get a dollar, euro, Canadian dollar value on. Yeah, we delivered that, and that increased revenue by, X million dollars or whatever. But maybe sometimes there's public information, depending on who you're working with. It would be great to go, hey, we localized that product, they launched, and now their annual sales are up. I mean, that's the ideal, right? So I think it's very difficult. I think it's the holy grail, Jose is saying, ROI on client side, so. Um, and of course, there's so many intangibles, right? There's so many intangibles too, that can't you can't put a dollar value or a euro value on, So, um, okay, nice note from Natalie there. So, thank you, Natalie. Yeah, absolutely, I totally agree with you. So, John, let us know if you figure that one out. But that would be wonderful. So I see Jose saying the easiest way to answer is to align localization efforts with pre-country revenue. Oh, per country revenue. Contributing to that revenue is a soft metric that tends to resonate well. So if we got the okay. So Jose, it's possible to say the revenue for company X, their sales in France last year was $100 million, and we're contributing because we're doing the localization and we're the localization partner. So their $100 million revenue. If that information is available, I guess that's a way you can back to marketing. They can package that up, Sandy, in a nice,
Yeah.
meaningful and talk about it hopefully. So
Yeah. It can be
I think that's
twisted
a
in
good
a
point.
nice
Yeah,
sounding way. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Natalie, I'm wondering if the audience can explain their own value they believe they bring for us to compare ourselves. That's a great question. Okay. Okay, and Jose has brought it back to explain that yeah, sales in France grew by 10% because we invested 500,000 in that market, So I see what you're saying there. And that's a much stronger metric to be shown, Jose. So I can totally see where you're going with that. But that's very strong messaging too, to that an LSP, or a localization partner could use, Again, assuming you're targeting direct end clients rather than LSP to LSP business, which is a whole different ball game anyway. So
That's a good point.
yeah.
Well, we wait for more questions. I was wondering now when you were, if I can ask you a quick
Sure, Sandy.
question,
Yeah. Yeah.
because I think for the marketing, I first there are many LSPs, and I'm not talking about the huge ones, but there are many small, mid-sized LSPs that leave marketing to the side because they don't have time for that, and it's a big switch that they have to do because
Yeah.
it is key, and you've underlined that beautifully in your presentation. I was wondering, does it come to mind any specific industry that has done this where they communicate value beyond delivery, and that would be interesting as an does something come to mind like a service-based industry like ours but that has in general managed to express that well? I was just started to think where we can get ideas kind of to get that shift started in our brains.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good question. I'm not sure I have an answer to it, to be honest with you. I mean, I think industries that are close to ours and comparable to ours, like the whole content creation industry, the whole
Mhm.
marketing agency industry and all that is a very close neighbor of ours.
Yeah.
Um, I think they're very good at, and they should be because that's their business, right? Um, at building
Mm.
that out, and self-promoting, I guess, But again, I think they're facing a lot of the critical issues that where it's very comparable, actually,
Yes.
creative agency, in the UK, for example, is facing many of the same challenges that an LSP in North America or Canada, is facing in terms of AI impact and what does that mean to our people and our creativity and all of that kind of stuff. So, um,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure. I don't know if anybody in the audience has a better answer. I can't think of an industry that has really done that really well. So, again,
It's an interesting challenge we have in front of us. I
it
also
is.
can't. There probably is, but I was just kind of interested if
Yeah.
something comes up to your mind. But we have a couple more messages in the chat from in the meantime. Krista says, I'm not sure this is a strong point, but strategically, I like to remind people that nothing generated by AI should be published without human interaction, be it coding or written content. I guess it would be framed as risk mitigation to have an LSP involved.
That's a great point, Krista. And you know what? I spoke at the Gala conference in Berlin a couple of weeks ago, and that was part of what I built in terms of you're 100% right. And a lot of LSPs are saying, oh, sure, we'll do it anyway, or we'll QA it for you, or we'll sign off on it, and they're not charging for it. So you're taking on that risk. You're taking on that risk and you're not charging. So you're 100% right. Risk mitigation is something you can sell as a service, in my opinion, to go back to your clients and say, okay, we'll do it. It's AI, but we're going to sign off on it. Perfect, but we're going to have to charge you for that, and because they're buying risk mitigation and it's an area that's it's only opening up and it's all sorts of dangers and threats and all of that, but again, it's something you should not be doing for free. You need to be charging for it if you're the one taking the risk. Why would you take the risk and sign off on that, or do that layer of QA and not have that conversation and charge accordingly? And I don't mean charge per word. I mean, charge accordingly, and have that conversation. And this is where you're tying into more of that top level value, strategic revenue, and all of that. You're having a grown up conversation to say, what we're giving you back is going to be good to go and sign off and all of that. But we're going to have to do extra work on this, and you're going to have to pay for that. And that's you're buying risk. You're not just buying words. You're buying comfort here. So I love that point. That's a really good point. Claudia asks, "What do you think of LinkedIn?" I love that question. What kind of service are you thinking of? I'm guessing Claudia means from a marketing perspective. Sandy, what do you think of LinkedIn? You're a marketing expert.
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think LinkedIn has shifted a bit from what it was a couple of years ago, but I guess that's expected with any social media and any grow. But I do think it's important we are there and we use it and we take full advantage of the. Yes,
I
yes.
agree with you. I would almost go as far as to say necessary evil. If I get one more pension planning, retirement planning, health insurance, development of tool, the list is endless. People are just trying to pitch and sell. So I absolutely hate the fact that LinkedIn has become a let's go and sell. Oh, can I connect with you? When people try to connect with me, one of the first questions I'm always suspicious is like what do we want to talk about, and if you try and sell to me, I'm immediately disconnecting from you. So I hate LinkedIn, to be honest with you, in that regard. But I really do think, Claudia, it's a necessary evil. But if you've got wonderful, beautiful marketing and messaging, then it's an opportunity, to change. I think again, I'm an optimist. So please get all that beautiful marketing stuff out there. Dario, great point. I love this. Dario
Yeah.
is a very senior, experienced person on the LSP side and the sales front line over the years, and that's a great point. Dario, where you know we want to shift. Yeah, the stakeholders want outcome based, but procurement might not have got that message. How do you sell past that? And that's a difficult conversation. As I said, marketing setting the tone early, but I agree with you, Dario. And some LSP owners that I've met are in, they've government contracts and stuff, and that's impossible to do, right? Because you have a 5-year agreement, maybe you've done a wonderful job, the stakeholders love you, and then suddenly it's up for renewal, and the procurement people are completely, we don't even know who they are. We've never spoken to them. The stakeholders don't even understand. So that's a really good question, Darry. Really difficult. Hopefully, the kind of organizations you're selling to, maybe the stakeholders will be able to talk to procurement and maybe sell that value a little bit, and then you stick to your messaging anyway. So I did have one in the past. We had a client where we were embedded for a long time, over 10 years, and there was a new procurement person, and we went on. Of course, they wanted to knock the rates down, and he literally started talking about buying toothbrushes from Walmart. And I thought, wow, we're in trouble here, because this guy doesn't really understand localization. And thankfully, the stakeholders stepped in and kind of had to readdress the whole thing. But he literally started discussing buying toothbrushes, on behalf of Walmart, as an organization, which basically I'm saying commoditized. He viewed it as commodity. He was buying commodity. So he compared our industry to buying toothbrushes for one. So it was an interesting conversation. But yeah, you got to get away from that commodity thing. Get them away from that if you can. So how are we doing? We're almost out of time, I think, Sandy. So
Yeah, I think this can be like a last question because we have one in the chat, so we can check that
service.
out.
So you hate it for selling. Thank you. In context where internet access, payment systems, and digital. Oh, wow. There's a great question from, is that Christina? Yeah.
Also sharing.
And thank you, Jose. Yeah, look, we could do a whole session on the African market, but it's Rosaline, right? I think that's Rosaline asking that question. Nice to see you, Rosaline. who's doing an amazing job out there in the African markets, by the way. So there's a plug for Rosalie Mabella.
Oh.
Amazing, amazing, amazing.
Oh, fantastic.
So I'll bring it back. Sandy, I hand it back to you. I think we've 4 minutes to
Okay.
go.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much, Paul. I think there are a couple of things that really kind of will stay with me for a while now to think, and I've written down some actions to take in the next few days because you shared so much valuable and practical information. So to close it off, this session was just one piece of the larger journey that I mentioned in the beginning, where each webinar builds on the previous one so we can connect these elements into a coherent strategy. We talked about how to build from the ground up for value. Now we talked about what is perceived value. How do we share this? Because even if we have the most valuable thing, if we don't share it through the marketing, if we don't express it in the words that I really like that when you mentioned that we need to talk to the clients the way they would explain to the COO, CTO, CFOs, and all the Cs in there. So I think that was a fantastic input as well. So our next two sessions, we have two more from the series. One will be in June on rethinking talent, quality, and performance in the changing industry with Bruno Herman. And then in July, we go into new considerations in valuation, succession planning, and exit strategies with Dee Johnson. So make sure you don't miss them. You should follow on LinkedIn both the Canadian Language Industry Association and the European Language Industry Association, where you will share this information. Also, we'll continue these conversations at two fantastic events happening in May. First, we have the World Speak 2026 in Gatineau, and this Paul will also be there, actually.
Yes, I
So
will.
you can, yeah,
Thank you.
and you all can get a chance to discuss this further with him in person, not via chat only. And then we also have our Elia Execs conference in May in the beautiful Hania, Crete. So we will post a link to that in the chat as well as for the World Speak conference. And yes, thank you so much, Paul, for sharing your fantastic
My
knowledge,
pleasure.
for dedicating this time to us, this 1 hour, but 1 hour filled with so much valuable information. Take at least one idea from this session, start implementing it, and as Paul said, test it in 30 days, right?
Exactly. That's just
Yeah.
grab one thing and try it. One thing and try it. And then if you see me in at WordSpeak next month, you can come and tell. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear, hey, I tried this and it failed, or I tried this and it's amazing. What else, or whatever. Love to hear. Please do.
Yes. So thank you all for your time. It was a pleasure to share this hour with you. Thank you again, Paul, and hope to
Thanks so
see you
much,
all at
Sandy.
our next webinars. Thank you.
Thank you.